He was the forgotten boy, barefoot, voiceless, clutching a newborn as if it were his last anchor to life itself. The townsfolk turned away, hardened by sun and hardship, their faces etched with survival's relentless grind. But amid the indifference, one man, a grieving widower haunted by loss and despair, took a single step forward, changing everything in an instant. The boy stood unmoving, silent even as the crowd's laughter echoed, a dry, rustling sound like dead leaves skittering across cracked earth. Arms wrapped tightly around the bundle of cloth pressed against his trembling chest, his eyes betrayed a weariness far beyond his years, hollow, distant, haunted. 8, maybe 9, but marked by a suffering that aged him beyond his age. Damp hair clung to his forehead. His boots long gone, replaced by bandaged feet darkened with dust and grit. The auction block beneath him groaned and creaked, bruised by the shifting weight of his fragile frame. He waited, unmoving, for something to change, yet nothing did. They had already sold the others. 10 children, cattle driven to auction in a cruel blur. Names barked out, coins exchanged, some taken with fleeting sympathy, others with greed. But this boy, silent and stoic, was unwanted. His burden too heavy, his silence unprofitable. "Let's move on," a man in a bowler hat called out, voice rough with contempt. "Ain't nobody buying 2 mouths for the price of 1. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, heat and dust mingling in the oppressive air. A baby's high-pitched cry pierced the silence from somewhere beyond the town, but the bundle in the boy's arms remained still. No sound, no stir, just a haunting stillness that unsettled even the hardened onlookers. Sheriff Dorman scratched at his neck, uneasy. The weight of what was happening pressed heavily on him. Selling children, an act that sat uncomfortably in his conscience. Yet the territory was broke, the orphanage reduced to ashes, and the church too full to take them in. Desperation had become their silent law. The auctioneer cleared his throat, voice cracking under the weight of necessity. "This one here's Caleb. 9 years old. Comes with his little brother, born just 2 weeks ago. Quiet, healthy enough. Still no bids. Strong boy," he added, desperation creeping into his tone. "Knows how to milk, chop kindling, carry water." A woman's voice sliced through the tension. "He's got a baby with him. What's he worth with that squalor hanging off?" Caleb flinched but stayed silent, clutching his brother tighter. The newborn stirred, flickered, then settled again. On the outskirts, Abram Cutter observed silently. He had stood unmoving from the start, hands folded over the head of his walking stick, a broad, unmoving silhouette. Once, 5 years ago, he'd buried his wife beneath wildflowers, a heartbreak buried deep. The doctor had told him he'd never be a father. After Abigail's death, he'd retreated into himself, farming, repairing fences, avoiding life. Until now. Something in the boy's silent resilience, the way he carried his brother without hope or pleading, stirred something long buried within Abram. Without a word he stepped forward. The crowd parted instinctively. "I'll take him," Abram declared quietly. The auctioneer blinked, caught off guard. "Both of them?" he asked. Abram nodded once. "Both. $5. "I've got land," Abram replied. "Food. Hands that need work. That's enough." The sheriff moved to intervene, but the auctioneer raised his hand, eyes softening. The hammer fell with decisive finality. Caleb remained motionless. "Come on, son," Abram said softly. "Time to go." The boy hesitated, then stepped down from the platform, silence hanging heavy. Abram turned and walked away, leaving Caleb and his brother behind. Caleb followed, barefoot, clutching Matthew as they disappeared into the dust-choked horizon. No words, only the weight of unspoken hope trailing behind them. They rode back to the ranch in a silence as thick as the dust. Abram did not ask questions. Caleb offered no answers. The baby made no sound. Every mile stretched taut, fragile threads of trust weaving between strangers, fragile and thin but unbroken. At the gate, Caleb's gaze lifted to read the faded words carved into the wooden arch. Cutter Homestead. Beneath it, once, the word hope had been etched, now worn away by time. Abram noticed Caleb's stare. "My wife named it that," Abram said quietly. "Every home needs hope." Caleb said nothing, stepping inside the humble, sturdy house. Inside it was plain, well-kept but empty, too vast for one man. Abram pushed open a door near the rear. "This was hers," he said softly. "I haven't used it since she's gone." The crib in the corner remained untouched, its blanket folded neatly. Dust danced in the shafts of sunlight spilling through the cracks. Caleb approached silently, gently laying Matthew down with tender care, so delicate it tightened Abram's throat. "What's his name?" Abram asked. "Matthew," Caleb whispered. "And yours?" "Caleb," he replied simply. "Hungry?" Abram asked. Caleb nodded, silent. They ate in quiet, biscuits, beans, water from the well, two souls seeking warmth and shared silence. That night, Abram sat on the porch, a pipe untouched, moon high, coyotes distant. Inside, Caleb moved in the shadows, checking on Matthew, pacing, listening. Finally he stepped outside, voice low. "Is it always this quiet?" "Most nights," Abram replied. "I don't like quiet," Caleb admitted. "Neither do I," Abram said softly. "But you get used to it." They sat in silence until Caleb broke it, voice trembling. "He didn't cry after Ma died." Abram turned, attentive. "She was holding him," Caleb continued, voice flat. "The house caught fire. She handed him to me through the window. Her hair was on fire. She didn't scream." Abram said nothing, sensing the weight behind those words. "They said it was lightning. But I saw the torch," Caleb whispered. "Someone said it." Abram didn't ask who, didn't need to. The next morning the baby's cry shattered the dawn, loud, urgent, alive. Caleb bolted awake and hurried to him, relief flooding his face as Matthew's hunger was finally satisfied. Abram watched, saw the flicker of life return to Caleb's eyes, hope reborn if only for a moment. Later, repairing a gate, Abram spotted unfamiliar boot prints, fresh, too fresh. He said nothing, but a shadow of concern crossed his face. That night he secured the house, locked doors, oiled rifle close at hand. Trouble had come calling. The following day they journeyed to Clearwater for supplies. Caleb insisted on carrying Matthew in a sling fashioned from an old feed sack. The boy's face was resolute, defiant. At the store, whispers followed, questions about the boy, the baby, the past. A drunken man sneered. "Give that squalor to someone who knows how to raise him." Caleb's jaw clenched. He faced the man without flinching. "He's mine." The drunk backed off, sensing the unspoken resolve. Back at the ranch, Caleb sat on the porch, Matthew in his arms. "Did you want kids?" he asked softly. Abram hesitated, then admitted, "I had names picked, before the doctor said it was impossible." "Astros? What names?" "Jacob and Ruth," Abram said, voice rough with longing. Caleb looked down at Matthew, then up. "Can I call you something?" Abram blinked, surprised. "Papa," Caleb said simply, softly. Abram's voice caught. He nodded, silent, overwhelmed by the weight of new hope. In the quiet weeks that followed, the ranch began to breathe again, not in fences or fields but in footsteps, voices, and the echoes of life. Matthew's cries no longer carried sorrow, they carried promise. Abram Cutter, who had lived in shadows for 5 years, was awakening to a future filled with purpose and love, slowly, painfully, learning what it meant to be needed again. Caleb spoke little but measured each word, working tirelessly, tending the small garden, never leaving Matthew's side. And when Abram asked if he ever got tired, Caleb simply said, "More when he's not near." One night, a distant sound, hooves, deliberate and slow, stirred Abram from sleep. He rose, rifle in hand, stepping into the cold night. From the shadows, a figure watched, silent, unyielding, waiting. And Abram knew with quiet resolve that trouble was coming, and this time he would be ready.